Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Draw with James. Today's painting demo is titled Belmorn. Belmorn is a dragonborn warrior. Yeah. Dragonborn is a race of creatures that you can play in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. I'm a huge Dungeons & Dragons fan. I love tabletop RPGs. Here lately I've been, in recent years, I've been playing Pathfinder. It's probably my favorite, just because I started out playing Advanced Dungeons & Dragons way back in the day, and then, it was 2nd edition, and then we went to 3rd edition, and then 3.5, and then Pathfinder seemed like the natural course because it was like 3.75. But then I didn't particularly care for 4th edition, 5th edition came out, and I didn't really buy into the books. So I started this drawing out just like I do all my other drawings. I start out with a really rough line, kind of sketch, and you're going to see this go by really quickly. The video is actually sped up by about 1,000%. I don't actually draw this fast. Man, if I could though, that'd be awesome. So I kind of had an idea of where I wanted to go with this drawing, but you know how it kind of, for me, a drawing evolves as I draw it. I've got like a rough idea in my head, and then I start putting it down on the paper or on the canvas in this case, and start working out the, I guess, details or like how this thing could actually be structured. The thing about the Dragonborn are they're a dragon hybrid kind of race. They're a bipedal dragon, and it would be really easy to like screw this up and make him look like lizard folk instead of like a dragon. I hope that I hit the mark on the dragon-like appearance. You'll have to let me know in the comments. Plug about commenting and all that. Anyway, if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen that I've already done this sketch once, and I had a really rough sketch that I posted a while back. It was okay, but it didn't really capture what I was going for. So I took some of the elements that I really liked from that, and I incorporated it into this sketch. And you'll notice that I spend quite a bit of time in the phase of doing the lines. I think one of the things that I do the most, or I do often or consistently, I don't think I do anything consistently, but the thing I do most consistently with drawing is try and work out the details or the structure of the drawing or painting in the drawing phase with the line work. It just kind of helps me plan the piece a little more. Now, I am guilty of not planning a drawing as much as I should. I think everybody is a little bit guilty of that. We always want to jump right in and start working on the details of a thing rather than going through the necessary process of planning out our illustrations. It's something that I work on or have been working on and hope to get, I'm working on getting better at it. We'll just say that. If you're sitting around going, who's this guy and why should I listen to him about drawing or anything like that? I'm just a dude who loves to draw, and I am on the same journey you are. Just kind of sharing what I do in my process, and I hope that maybe that inspires you to get out and create art yourself. That's the goal, is to make more art. To quote one of the artists that I follow quite a bit, do more art, draw more. If you enjoy drawing, go do it. Don't let anybody discourage you from that craft. I think too often people dismiss art as a hobby or a neat thing that somebody can do, and really it's a craft. It takes practice and effort to learn how to do things correctly. Speaking of learning to do things correctly, if you'd like to see a tutorial video or something, let me know in the comments. I think I'm going to do a couple anyway, just cause. We'll see what happens. Anyway, if you notice the little pop-ups in the corner, I don't know if they're going to come back up or not throughout the video, but I was on Discord. Yep, there goes one. I was on Discord, and I'm part of a couple of servers on there, and I kept getting notifications, and I forgot to turn it off, and I had it up the whole time. I eventually go in and I turn that off, excuse me, and those will stop popping up. You can see Dave Greco's name come up and repeat on the bottom there. Dude's got some awesome artwork. Anyway, I really, like, as far as the drawing goes, I really like to take the line work to a really finished stage. This in the realm of like doing work for clients, such as, you know, character portraits and things like that. Having a well done or well defined, clean line art to present to your client for approval is, I think, very important, because it shows a certain level of finish and helps the client see where the drawing is going or where the painting is going. Oh boy, yeah, the infamous triangle spikes. So, boys and girls, this is a classic example of do more form studies, perspective studies. That's a thing. I struggled with these so bad. I think I drew them like 3 or 4 times, and they're just pyramids. They're just pyramids. That's all they are. It's a series of triangles. I think after I did this, I opened a new document after filming this and just drew a bunch of boxes in perspective and a bunch of triangles in perspective. I was like so mad at myself for not being able to draw simple pyramids in perspective. And you know, I think that's kind of one of the things that is interesting. Another thing that I find interesting about art is you know what something is supposed to look like, but you end up challenged by it, I guess would be the term. And man, sometimes that just, it really gets you. But that's the other great part about it, is that you, once you figure it out, you know, like once you go, aha, that's how that works, you know, again, even if you should know how it works to begin with. That was kind of these pyramid spike things for me. I think you'll notice across several of my videos that my process is similar across a lot of my illustrations, but it changes slightly. The order in which I do things, or like exactly how I do a thing, changes just a little bit. And the reason for that is that, like I said before, I'm just a guy who loves to draw, who wants to do it, you know, professionally. And so, like, every time I do a drawing, whether it's a study or it's a portrait or, you know, like a masterpiece type painting, I'm trying to learn something. I'm trying to refine my procedures, basically, to find the best way or the most efficient way to create the thing, that vision that's in my brain or that a client has directed. You see me try and warp this into perspective, and that did not work. I really like the way the Gorgon came out. That's the name of that particular piece of armor, if you're into that kind of stuff. But you know, like what the name of armor actually is, the thing that goes around your neck is called a Gorgon. Anyway, I think I'm saying that right. And back to fixing the pyramids again. A good old copy paste. And I'm just gonna kind of let the line art piece play out for a little bit as I'm kind of going through and fixing some things or laying in some detail it's not going to end up in the final part or in the final illustration. It's just for my clarity, I guess, my own understanding of what I'm trying to do. You'll see me flip the canvas pretty often. I've done it several times in this illustration already, and essentially what that does for you is it lets you take a fresh perspective of the drawing. It'll let you see things that you didn't see before because you've been staring at this one perspective for quite some time. So what I'm doing now is I am laying in what I call a base or a silhouette kind of shape. It's not, well, yeah, it is a silhouette. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm just laying in basically a piece that serves as a selection. In Photoshop, you can use layer masks and things like that. You can do that in Paintstorm Studio, and it works. It functions the way it's supposed to. I just, for my own process, I don't use it very often. I just kind of select a base silhouette or flat colors that I'm working with, and then I use that as a selection. And then here we're going to start laying in the flats, and after creating that base, it allows me to be very, I guess, messy with what I'm doing for the flats. And if you pay attention, you'll be able to see, the order in which, or the order in which the layers kind of stacks up. Those with keen eyes are going to see me screw something up here in just a second and have to go back and fix it later on in the painting process. I'll point it out when I figure out where I've messed it up. Silly, but things like that happen. I think I was kind of in a hurry to get the flats done at that point, and so I wasn't paying attention. So I'm going to let the flatting process play through, and then I will come back in and point some other stuff out as we go along. So what I did there was I created a layer on top of everything and filled it with black, and then set the layer mode to saturation. And so that kind of gives me a black and white, well, it does, not kind of, but it gives me a values picture of my painting. And then I can pick a better value for my shadow color. And so now what I'm doing is I'm going in and adding in, I call it AO, but that's probably not accurate. It's, I'm basically rendering out the forms of the character, making sure that everything reads as a 3D object, and rather than, a flat plane, so to speak. Ambient occlusion is actually the occlusion, well, okay, never use the definition of the word you're trying to define in the definition, but ambient occlusion is basically the places where the light does not reach. Light bounces around all over the place, no matter what environment you're in. At some, in some places, the light just doesn't quite reach, like spaces of things that are really tight together, the corners of your mouth, inside your nostrils, that kind of stuff. But in this case, I'm using it as kind of a, what are the forms? What is it? How is this thing shaped? I'm using a very desaturated blue set to multiply on its own way. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but getting text messages, it never fails. When you go to record something, you immediately get your phone blown up. So we're going to let the AO pass kind of go through. I go through and do this throughout the whole piece, trying to render everything out and give it form. So here's where I figure out that I royally screwed up the Gorgon. I'm laying in the shadows to communicate the form of the thing, and I get about partway through it and I go, wait a minute, something's not right. And to go back to all the way to the base flat and try and fix that. If you're wondering what brushes I'm using, it's just, most of the time, it's a hard square brush or a hard round brush and a simple blender. They're default brushes. Well, the hard round brush is a default brush. The square brush is, I just changed the shape of I just copied the default round brush, the hard round brush, and changed the shape to square, because I like to work with a square brush. I don't know, man, we're just trying to figure it out as we go along. A lot of programs, there's a way to do straight lines. In Paintstorm Studio, you have to hit shift, so you place your cursor down, or the point of your brush down, and then you hold shift and you go to your next point, and that will draw a straight line. You guys are gonna see that this eye is just a bunch of nonsense. I was like, oh yeah, that'll work. Kind of figuring it out as I go along. Paintstorm Studio has this neat mixer kind of like palette that you put off to the side, and it's really handy for like selecting a color and then putting it down so you can go back and reselect that color again and again. It does remember the color across the bottom of the color box you can see over there, the color wheel, but if you've selected a whole bunch of other colors, it eventually just marches off to the right and it's gone. So I like to put it on the mixer to go back and reselect it if I need to. Here I'm going in and I'm adding some bounce light from the environment itself. You notice that the background is this really dark burgundy kind of color, so I want to go in and add just some bounce light that ties the character to his environment. One of my favorite parts of doing a portrait or a portrait is is the eye, putting the highlights in the eye and getting those little shiny glossy bits, because I feel like it really brings the portrait to life at that point. I should probably save it for a little further along in the process, because it's nice, but what the heck, And there I am hitting my Windows key on accident because I'm not looking at my keyboard while I'm using the keyboard shortcuts. So I'm laying in these scales on their own layer. It's just a darker green color from the base color. I just kind of went in and made a darker green color and set it to multiply. And I'm using my square utility brush, which is just drop the layer opacity. Now I made a new layer, did the same thing, kind of a rough checkerboard, kind of a pattern there. And then in order to merge those two layers, I set them both back to normal, and then merge them and then set them back to multiply. I'm talking with my hands, so if you hear an occasional bang or whatever, it's my hands hitting the desk. Now I'm throwing in the cast shadows from the kind of a direct light. Just figuring out, I want the light to come from what would be the top, front, right-ish of the canvas, and then calculate where the shadows are going to hit. And the thing about cast shadows is sometimes the cast shadows are real hard and they've got a real hard edge, and sometimes the cast shadow has a softer edge, kind of a fall off. It kind of helps sell the form a lot more if you learn which is which. Like I said, not an expert. I'm learning same as everybody else. Lighting is one of those things that takes time and practice and observation. In this case, I decided which direction the light was coming from, and then everything opposite of that was cast in shadow. went into the background layer and dropped in a really saturated red that helps pull the eye back into the towards the character, so you can where it directs the focus of the view. Going through and dropping in some more pronounced highlights, kind of on the edge of the scales, get those to pop out a little bit more and give them some more dimensionality. The key to selling a material like metal or scales or whatever is to figure out, well, the first, look up some reference. Always work from reference. But the specularity of a object, that is how much light it actually reflects, will tell the viewer what that object is made out of. Whether it's metal or leather or scales, or if it's shiny, or how glossy it is or not glossy. There I kind of faked a reflection on the pauldron. Here I tried experimenting a little bit, like figuring out how the light would come through the slots in the gorget there, and I just didn't like the way it came out. Call it an artistic choice. It probably would come through there in reality, but it didn't look right to me and it didn't work, so I took it out. So here I've gone all the way back down to the flats layer, and I'm adding some color variety, some color variation to the character overall. So he's not just one flat note. If you've ever looked at reptiles in real life, or if you take a look at the reference I have up there, it's an iguana. His scales aren't all one shade of green. So I wanted to go through and give this guy a little variety. We'll add layer on the eye, makes it seem like it's glowing. Well, yes, I think it is. It's add. Might have been overlay. No, the last couple of them were overlay. The one was to kind of sell some subsurface scattering, and the last overlay is actually a burgundy, and I cover the whole thing and then drop the opacity. And what that does is it helps homogenize the colors, helps bring them together so that the piece has an overall like matching color harmony. And now the overpaint phase, where I fix the far side of this dude's head so it actually matches the near side. I don't know if that was bothering anybody else, but it definitely bothered me. The overpaint phase is kind of twofold. You fix some of the mistakes that you've noticed after looking at the painting for a little bit. Now, this is actually a day after I thought I was finished, and then I go back and I put an overpaint layer on there, and I start going through and cleaning up edges and fixing some perspective errors and things like that. This is the stage that brings the painting to a higher level of finish. And here's the final illustration. I hope you guys really enjoyed the video. I know it's kind of a longer video. It's about 40 minutes. Shorter than my other videos. Question mark. Let me know what you think. Consider liking and subscribing. And let me know in the comments what kind of content you enjoy seeing the most on my channel. Thanks for watching.